When it comes to travel, one of the best ways to get around is by train. Trains allow for large amounts of people to get from point A to point B in a fast and efficient way. But the issue with train transportation is that they generally cost a lot of money to set up and build. And be it super-fast maglev lines or more traditional high-speed rails, there are some railways that have cost an ungodly amount of money to build. So today, put on your conductor's hats and get your tickets ready as we take a look at 15 of the most expensive railway projects in history. Number 15. The Grand Paris Express. Paris is a massive city, so it makes sense that it's expanding its subway system via the Grand Paris Express. The project currently consists of the addition of 4 new lines and the extensions of 2 existing ones, with a total of 200 kilometers of track and 68 stations currently being planned. The idea is that these will serve a projected 2 million passengers a day and will all likely be done by the year 2030. However, at an estimated cost of as much as $45 billion, it certainly ain't gonna be cheap. Number 14. The Alta Velocidad Espanola. The Alta Velocidad Espanola in Spain is easily one of Europe's most impressive high-speed rail projects. First begun all the way back in 1992, it's the longest high-speed rail network in Europe and the second longest high-speed rail network in the world, with 3,600 kilometers of track, putting it only behind China in terms of length. Now, at the moment, there are a total of 10 main lines, with 2 more minor spur lines and 5 corridors also being operational. However, Spain is currently in the process of building 10 more lines and 6 corridors, with the last one being planned to be operational by 2023. This not only makes this high-speed rail project a very long-term endeavor, but unsurprisingly also quite expensive, as the entire network's total price tag is expected to ring in at $69.9 billion. Number 13. 10T Core Network. Nothing quite beats having an EU passport, as it allows holders to live anywhere in the Schengen area with practically zero restrictions. And while Europe's infrastructure is already world-class, soon the 10T Core Network will bring things to a whole new level. Also known as the Trans-European Transport Network, its goal is to create brand new sets of railway lines, roads, inland waterways, maritime shipping routes, ports, airports, and railroad terminals to connect all of Europe. The idea is that all of these new additions will be environmentally friendly, with this massive project being split into 9 core corridors that will all be interconnected. While all of this building will make things more efficient, the estimated total cost has been a whopping $600 billion, and given that it likely won't be completed until about 2050, it'll be a while before you'll be able to ride on a 10T Core Network rail line. Number 12. Honam High-Speed Railway. South Korea is one of Asia's most high-tech and advanced nations, and so it makes sense that they built a top-of-the-line high-speed railway. It was created with the intention of connecting the cities of Osang and Mokpo via Gwangju. The route to Mokpo was first made to share the existing Seoul-Busan tracks to Osang, and from there head southwest for 230 kilometers to reach Mokpo. When the project was completed in 2015, a total of 6 stations were added to the route, and given the fact that these trains can travel at 350 kph, there are some areas that were impossible to commute from in the past that are now completely possible to commute from. For example, the railway made travel so quick that the route between Seoul and Gwangju was cut from a hellish 2 hours and 40 minutes to just 90 minutes. As a result, while the total cost of $9.8 billion was nothing to sniff at, the railway has made it far easier for people in farther off cities and towns to work in the capital city. Number 11. The London Crossrail. London is an absolutely massive city, and while its subway system is already pretty extensive, a new line has just been completed that connects the western station of Reading to the eastern stations of Abbey Wood and Shenfield. Known as both the London Crossrail and the Elizabeth Line, it primarily used existing stations in its construction, although it's incorporated into a series of 9 new stations while completely rebuilding one old one. In order to ferry people between the stations, a total of 65 new trains were built, and each is over 200 meters long and has the capacity to hold up to 1,500 people. While the line's additions are impressive in their own right, the thing that really makes the London Crossrail special is the fact that it cuts straight across the rest of the line, making it far easier for commuters to move east and west across the city, while also providing a way for commuters to move between lines more easily. And while COVID-19 caused some significant delays, most of the line was opened on May 24th of 2022. And when the rest of the line opens in 2023, there'll finally be an end to this gargantuan $25 billion project. Number 10. The China-Nepal Railway. In recent years, China's been expanding its regional influence, and one way in which it's been trying to do so is through the extension of economic infrastructure. While this often takes the shape in the form of ship ports, airports, or roadways, one prime example of this in action is the China-Nepal Railway. You see, in order for freight to get between the two countries, it generally needs to travel through Tibet. But for this new railway, the idea is to create a 628-kilometer line that links Kathmandu in Nepal, Shigatse in Tibet, and Girong Rasua in China. While 556 kilometers of the line will be in China, 72 will be in Tibet, and planners believe that this section will be especially challenging. This is because the topography of the Himalayas will make the rail line a nightmare to build, and the area is so mountainous that it's believed that 98.5% of the Nepal section will be bridges or tunnels. As such, while the initial estimates peg the project at a cost of about $5.5 billion, other estimates believe that the total cost will be closer to $29 billion, although only time will tell whether or not this massive price tag is realized. Number 9. The China-United States Railway. In recent years, the relationship between China and the United States has been a little rocky, but back in 2014, a far better geopolitical situation meant that there were some very real discussions surrounding the idea of a China-United States railway. More specifically, the idea was that a train ride could potentially make a 13,000-kilometer journey by starting in China, going through Russia, crossing the Bering Strait via an undersea tunnel, and then going through to Canada to arrive at its final destination in the United States. This would allow travelers to get between the two countries in just 2 days at a price that was presumably far cheaper than paying for a plane ride. However, the initial proposed price tag of $200 billion was simply exorbitant, and now that relations between China and Russia on one side and Canada and the US on the other are far more sour than they used to be, the chance of this railway getting the green light is very low. However, had this connection been possible, it would have likely been a very environmentally friendly route, producing just 14 grams of CO2 per passenger per kilometer, as opposed to the approximate 285 grams that's the average for air travel. However, unless things improve between all the countries involved, the China-United States Railway will remain little more than a pipe dream. Number 8. HighSpeed 2. Nothing is quite like a fast commute, and as the name suggests, the HighSpeed 2 allows you to get from point A to point B with a lot of speed. Announced in 2020 by former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, the idea is that it will connect England's most important city centres, with the plan being for it to stretch from London in the south to Manchester in the north, with stops and shoot-offs to cities such as Birmingham and Crewe. Now, the special thing about the HighSpeed 2 is that unlike the more conventional rail lines that already connect these cities, the HighSpeed 2 will be a high-speed rail line, as it will have 2 classes of trains capable of operating at the line's design speed of 400 kph, which is fast enough to cut the current travel time of 81 minutes between London and Birmingham to just 52. However, the line is not without its costs, as current estimates place the total cost of the project at $100 billion. And while the first phase should be completed sometime between 2029 and 2033, the second, third, and fourth phases that will complete the line won't be completed until about 2045. However, once the entire project is up and running, chances are that the rail line will be an incredible piece of infrastructure. Number 7. New York Subway Extensions. It's no secret that New York has built one of the world's most extensive subway systems, and while it's not clear exactly how much the entire system cost to build, what is clear is that the new extensions are extremely expensive. After all, in the 2010s, the city opened 2 subway extensions at price tags of around $1.3 and $1.6 billion per kilometer, and these extensions seem to be as expensive as they are for a number of reasons. For one, a group of investigative accountants have claimed that many of those who were employed to work on the subway simply did not have to be there, and that as a result, labor costs were far higher than they should have been. Additionally, consulting firms hired by the city reportedly convinced public officials to spend a lot more on design funding than they usually do, further driving up the prices. Since the city's structure of doling out subway contracts involves a lot of deference to unions and very little oversight by public officials, the prices are often set artificially high, and according to the consulting group Arup, the end result of this arrangement is that in New York, underground construction employs approximately 4 times the number of personnel as does similar jobs in Asia, Australia, or Europe. As such, unless New York gets its act together, it will be forced to pay far more for far less than its foreign competitors. Number 6. The Hong Kong Underwater Railway. When it comes to wealth, few areas in Southeast Asia are quite as well off as Hong Kong. A bustling, modern, business-oriented city, Hong Kong has a very extensive subway system, with this being necessary in order to ferry the population between Hong Kong's various islands. After all, while the majority of Hong Kong's citizens live in Kowloon and the New Territories, the city's major business hub is Hong Kong Island. And so in order to move these massive amounts of people who work there every morning and evening, the city relies on 4 of Hong Kong's metro train lines. However, since over 1 million people use the metro to cross this route every day, Hong Kong is in dire need of an additional line, and this is where the Hong Kong Underwater Railway comes into play. The idea behind it is that it would extend the East Rail line from Kowloon across Victoria Harbour, and in order to make this route extension, Hong Kong decided not to blast into the bedrock, and instead create an immersed tube tunnel. This will be made by dropping down tunnel sections, fitting them together, and then covering them with underwater dirt. And once the whole thing is watertight and the water's pumped out, the end result is a functional underwater tunnel. However, while this tunnel is certainly cool, its price tag of $11 billion is pretty steep, making a big dent in Hong Kong's wallet. Number 5. Doha Metro. Qatar is a country that's been riding a steady high for the past few years. After all, not only has it developed extremely quickly with the help of its prosperous oil industry, but it also won the bid for hosting the 2022 World Cup. As a result, Qatar's capital of Doha has seen and will see a lot of traffic, and this is what has inspired the creation of the Doha Metro. Consisting of about 76 kilometers of track, it connects Doha's main cities, outer suburbs, and sporting arenas, with further expansion set to be completed by 2025. Now, what makes this subway unique is that it has some of the most advanced metro trains in the world, as they're not only fully driverless, but can also reach speeds of up to 100 kilometers an hour, making travel on the line efficient and effective. Unlike most other forms of public transport, the Doha Metro also has a tiered system that features standard, family, and gold passes, with each tier providing the rider with different privileges. While some may argue that this system is a little bit antithetical to the whole concept of public transport, the line is nonetheless quite luxurious whether you're in the standard or gold class. After all, the network is fully equipped with CCTV and public Wi-Fi systems, and gold-class travelers even have access to USB ports so they can charge up their devices on the fly. So I think it is fair to say that the Doha Metro is truly unique, although its cost of $36 billion definitely puts it on the pricier side. Number 4. The Mumbai-Ahmedabad High-Speed Corridor. India is a country that's seen soaring growth in recent years, and this in turn has led to greater funding being available for infrastructure. And while this has led to the construction of several new train lines, the flashiest by far is the Mumbai-Ahmedabad High-Speed Corridor. Slated to be India's first-ever high-speed rail line, it involves the construction of a 500-kilometer-long rail line consisting of 468 kilometers of elevated rail and 27 kilometers of tunnels. The trains on this new line will be capable of running at speeds between 320 and 350 kph and will service 12 new railway stations and will be dotted by undersea tunnels, which include a 7-kilometer-long tunnel under the Arabian Sea and a 21-kilometer undersea tunnel between Thane and Virar in Mumbai. In order to facilitate this line, a total of 60 bridges and 2 viaducts are being built, and while the project's completion date is still unclear, it's believed that at least parts of it may be up and running by 2027. However, in order to pay for the tunnel, the Indian government is shelling out a lot of dough, as the entire project is expected to cost $14 billion, with $11 billion that's being supplied by the Japan International Cooperation Agency via a low-interest loan. However, due to issues surrounding the acquisition of land and the COVID-19 pandemic, new estimates are stating that the project may cost as much as $20 billion. And if this is the case, the Indian government will have to find a way to pony up that additional cash. Number 3. The California High-Speed Rail. Of all the infrastructure projects currently underway in the United States, few have been quite as controversial as the California High-Speed Rail. The original idea behind it was to build a high-speed rail system that would travel at speeds of up to 350 kilometers an hour in order to make the trip between Los Angeles and San Francisco in just 2 hours and 40 minutes. For reference, this is about 1 hour slower than flying, but more than 3 hours faster than driving. And theoretically, such a route should make it far easier for commuters to travel between the two cities. Now, when the project began in 2008, it was supposed to cost the 2020 equivalent of $40.4 billion. However, ever since, the costs have ballooned to about $105 billion. While all the factors at play are rather complex, the 3 main challenges have been the continuous changes in designs and routes, delays in moving underground utilities, and problems buying all the land along the proposed route. These issues have led to many questionable policy decisions, with many believing that the addition of extra stops has added billions of dollars to the cost, while severely decreasing the speeds of the project's various train lines. Unsurprisingly, all these failures have led to a lot of political backlash, with many former supporters calling for an end to all spending surrounding the line. As such, while the entire project is pegged to be completed by around 2029, there's a fairly high likelihood that it may lose so much public support that the decision is made to completely cancel it. Number 2. The Trans-Siberian Railway. Russia is a massive place, and as a result, getting across it is no quick task. After all, it's got a length of about 9,000 kilometers and a width of as much as 4,000 kilometers, making it the world's largest country by far. And as a result, Russia needs good infrastructure in order to connect one corner of the country to another. And while there are now roadways and plane routes that accomplish this, perhaps the most historically significant transport route in Russia is the Trans-Siberian Railway. Consisting of over 9,200 kilometers of track, it's the longest railway line in the world and runs from the capital city of Moscow in the west to the city of Vladivostok in the east. Built between 1891 and 1916 under the direction of the Russian Empire, it cost about $1 billion at the time of its construction, which today is equal to an astounding $27 billion. While this accounted for an insanely high 20% of Russia's national debt, it ended up being worth it, as despite the problems, the railway became extremely important. You see, while problems such as flimsy bridges and poorly built tracks caused trains to derail quite often, the railway opened new possibilities up to the rest of the country, as it was able to facilitate trade and human movement in a way that was simply unprecedented. In recent years, there have been extensions of the line to neighboring cities, with links to Mongolia, China, and North Korea already underway, while talks about a potential link to Japanese locations such as Tokyo and Hokkaido are also in the cards. However, given the current geopolitical catastrophe that Russia embroiled itself into, chances are that these proposed links probably won't materialize anytime soon. Number 1. Chuo Shinkansen. Japan is known for its high-speed train lines, yet by the late 2020s, the country will have a train line like no other. Known as the Chuo Shinkansen, it will connect Tokyo to Nagoya by 2027 and Nagoya to Osaka by 2037. And it stands apart due to it being an ultra-innovative maglev line. While the specifics of what a maglev line are quite complicated, in short, it's a train that uses a set of two magnets, with one set repelling and pushing the train up and off the track, while the other moves the elevated train ahead. This takes advantage of the lack of surface-to-surface friction, so the train can move at incredibly fast speeds while still being incredibly quiet and smooth. And while examples of these types of trains exist across the world, the one in Japan stands apart due to the plan for it to being able to travel at up to 500 kilometers an hour, which would make it the fastest passenger train in the world. Now, to be clear, maglev lines already exist in Japan, but what makes the Chuo Shinkansen special is that it's the culmination of the country's maglev train system, and it's estimated that it'll be able to make the trip between Tokyo and Nagoya in less than an hour, which is pretty impressive given that it takes 1 hour and 40 minutes right now. However, about 86% of the Tokyo-Nagoya line will be underground, which requires extensive tunnel construction, and this has caused some problems in certain parts of the line. This is because Shizuoka Prefecture's Oi River has been a major roadblock, as there are worries it may leak into the train's tunnel and lower the river's water levels. However, while the Central Japan Railway Company has expressed concern that this may make the 2027 completion date near impossible, I'm pretty confident that Japanese authorities will be able to find a way to get around this problem and complete this monstrous $13.7 billion project. I'll see you next time.
Watch our Vehicles playlist for more top 15 videos about amazing vehicles. Sit back, relax, and binge watch all of our best vehicle videos.